Good morning, folks. We're opening here with what we couldn't show yesterday, plus the second pop that nearly reached M-class flaring as well. Let's begin with spaceweathernews.com and see both the coronal holes tilted in Earth's direction from their polar homes. The flare effects are visible in the outer corona zoomed out here, with the flaring sequence having quieted this morning as the sunspots turn onto the Earth-facing half of the sun. Anyone remember the Earth-facing solar quiet effect? The X-ray signatures of the flares were only half the story. The low chromospheric eruption points at the fields precluded all but small ejecta packets leaving the active region, but this force you are seeing pushing outward is what makes those gigantic CMEs when we get the bigger flares. Have to peek in on the solar wind as well. Coronal hole stream impact is clear as the blue phi angle and the plasma stream density jumps up a few hours before the faster stream arrived. That faster stream is still below 400 kilometers per second and is relatively modest in terms of geo-effectiveness. A couple interesting quakes struck the middle of the Atlantic yesterday. Hopefully those are not foreshocks. And that's a good segue to mention that with increases in solar activity, we also have the solar polar fields about to reverse in total polarity to which Earth is exposed. Both peak strength and polarity reversals are key in a magnetic system, and it looks like we've got all the ingredients for excess magnitude events in the coming week. Up first in the articles, NASA explaining why it may be months until they officially call the next solar cycle 25 as having begun, but would be doing so retroactively, in hindsight. Not a bad info nugget article, and neither is this. Folks, there is one region of our scientific coverage where we are not so contrarian. Every blot echo ever, those things that let us predict earthquakes, all of them strike subducted regions of the crust. Now, many in our community struggle with modern plate tectonic theory, I know, but the existence of the deep earthquake striking only cold slabs in the mantle cannot be ignored. Here, they are confirming that it's not just a regional thing. The deformation models of such cold slabs happens to match in high detail where they're actually seeing the distributions of those deep earthquakes. Fascinating, but not one bit unexpected. Marsaholics take a drink of muddy water. The strange lava flows on Mars are not lava at all. They are mud flows. They have recreated them bit for bit in the desert, which means Earth may not be the only planet to have mud floods. That's nice. Okay, let's go to what mainstream science will say was the top story of the last day. They caught what they classify as a stellar mass black hole in outburst mode. As we zoom in, you're going to see that two nearby objects are covered with the same pinkish X-ray glow overlay from Chandra. Those are definitely a binary system, but there's not any real reason to think it's a black hole at only 8 times the mass of the Sun. The close-in binary of what are likely super-dense stars is creating a nebulous cloud around them of plasma and gases, all shining in X-rays from the photoionization and interaction from the stars, along with the material blasted out the north-south jet of the poloidal field structure. But this isn't my top story of the day. For that, we pulled diamonds from the rough of the upcoming papers in the Astrophysical Journal letters. A combined X-ray and optical wavelength shot of a gorgeous gamma-ray pulsar with a hydrogen alpha bow shock not only appears to have a different energy helical green spiral wrapping around the core axis of the bow and trailing features, but look over to the right at the same green color, patches trailing slightly down and to the right. Well, folks, they zoomed out. The little green blob is the giant wind nebula from the region, and it appears it is connected to a straight-line filament also shining in X-rays. Folks, we had originally hoped that radioscopes would reveal these straight-line filaments, but what if it's just a different look at the X-ray data, which is far from fully explored, and which they proved here as it was the same kind of deep reveal efforts we've seen from Hubble. This indicates an energy level across the filament much higher than even any in our community has ever suggested. And now we have to ask a very difficult question. Is that a beam emission from the pulsar or to it? We greatly appreciate your support. Folks, we're going to hit a number of topics on Fly on the Wall today, including the underwater tornado from this week. It will not be the only twister we discussed either, and geez, this is another tailspin here. We'll hit the FRB news from this week, the sign of the magnetic reversal seen by the gold satellite, and much more. That podcast will post to the members' Fly on the Wall section here in a few hours at suspiciousobservers.org. We've got your wind map forecasts and shots of our star to close, and of course, we'll do this all again tomorrow, right here, but right now it's 5 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.